Goes. We're live. We're live and direct, man. We got Carlos Chacon. Everybody loved you last week, man. It was a great interview, brother. I'm saying it's gonna be a while. You'll start seeing the comments come in.
Okay, well, I like I told you last time. I'll be honest. I won't lie. I won't try and trick you. We can have a mutual exchange of information.
Yeah, yes, sir.
I won't play anybody out of pocket, but I would expect them not to try and play me out of pocket either. ¿Qué te iba a decir? We were talking about the NF history from the 60s into the 70s. And I've listened to a lot of your interviews, and there was one gentleman that spoke. God, I'm having a senior moment here.
That's all right, brother.
You guys were talking about him. Oh, anyhow, he talks about right after the demise of the NF, pretty much when the northern structure started coming in.
Yeah.
And how he came in and started taking things over. In fact, with Rojo, he was locked up with Rojo at the time.
The one that started to push the Raza. Okay, there's an interesting thing there. Okay, you had Hobo that was in charge of a certain department, right? Glenn Holden, right? I personally know him, right?
Okay.
And under him was a dude named Ricardo London, who was not an NF member or an NR member, but he was in charge of all undercover NF members and all Nuestra Raza members, all structure at the time. You know what I'm saying? So it was kind of interesting situation. You got to do that's not even an official member that's in charge of, you know what I'm saying? But he was a close associate. They trusted him.
Okay. In fact, David, you and I were talking about this one guy, and I can't remember his name now. But anyhow, no one talked about the NF before in the 60s, when Bob came into the picture, when he became the general, how he became the general. Now, I came on in 1975. I went to intelligence working the mobs in 1980, after working all those other units. And I got to talk to a lot of old timers that were around in the 60s, some of them even in the 50s, late 50s through the 60s, when they got out. And they were there during the time when the war started kicking off between the NF and the ME, and how it sucked in the AB and the BGF. BGF for the NF, Norteños, and ME aligned their forces with the Aryan Brotherhood. Now, the way it was told to me by all of these guys that were doing time at the time, and by the Sosas as well, they the thing with the war kicked off because of the shoes.
Yeah.
I heard one of the guys talk about, one of the old gentlemen or one of the old members. He was talking about the boots that were they went in and took somebody's boots or something. But the way I heard it was that, if I can remember, if I'm wrong, I apologize, because it's been a lot of years. I retired in 2009, and I stopped working them actually like the mid 90s or even before then. So all of my history is before then. And one of the things that was fascinating to me is that nobody had it down on paper, not the institutions, and not the mobs. So everything was in the heads of the guys that were members at the time that were fighting in the wars and such. But it was my understanding that it was the EME that initially started up, and they became throughout the institutions throughout California. And it was the EME that was first started up. AB was already in play, and so was the BGF. But they were small, relatively small in numbers compared to...
What was their name at the time? I know they had different names back then.
Well, the Aryan Brotherhood started off with the Bluebirds, and
BGF was Black Family, right?
No, they've always been the BGF from what I know, the Black Guerrilla Family. Now, there were other offshoots that came off of the BGF, like the Vanguards and that sort of stuff. You ever heard of them?
Vanguard, Bloodline, all that?
That was an offshoot of the BGF. And let me go back a little bit. They were all doing their own thing. The Norteños had not come into their own yet. But the MA was, according to what everybody had told me at the time, the MA was doing their own thing, but they were starting to control everything, everywhere, all the dope to everybody, you know, and because they were making lots of money. And when let me regroup my thoughts here. The NF at some point in their ventures decided that they were losing too much money to not tax, because one of the things was they were not taxing Chicanos. It was everybody else. But one of what they said was that it was too lucrative not to tax the other Chicanos, especially the Norteños, you know, because everybody here was from the South pretty much, you know, Los Angeles area and so on. And they started hitting a lot of the Norteños. Well, a group of the Norteños got together. They were not organized, but they got together out of self-preservation. And now this is what's being told to me. So, but nobody can tell me that it's true or that it's not true. You know, I've yet to, of all of the hundreds of people that I interviewed, nobody had any real, like, can you prove that to me? Is there anything on paper? Nobody had it. And the Norteños put out a word that, you know, to all of the other inmates that were, and I think it was at San Quentin. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember. I even have these training films that I recorded back then when I was training law enforcement, and I'll have to review them to give me all the details. I'm just doing this off of memory. And they put the word out to all of the other Chicanos. Hey, you know, if you want to come with us, we'll help protect you, you know. And they weren't doing it for financial reasons or anything. They were just out of self-protection. Well, the Norteños started getting so big that they said, "Sabes qué? Why not? We should get our share of the profits coming in." So then that's when they created the Nuestra Familia. They called themselves the Nuestra Familia. And then the Nuestra Familia, of course, they had to put out this word about, you know, if the M is harassing you, you come to us and we'll protect you, because that's what that was their original reason for existence. And it just so happens that there was some Emmett guys that walked into this guy's cell, a Norteño, and they started taking his shit, you know, and they took his shoes. When they left, of course, he wasn't going to tell them anything because there were several of them. So after they left, he went straight to the Norteños, and he says, "Hey, these guys took the shit out of me, you know, from my cell. You guys said you're going to help me, you know." And now he's kind of fronting them off, you know, to around a lot of people, making this claim. So the whoever was in charge at the time, he says, "Okay, we'll talk about it." And you know, I don't know why I'm thinking Hacha I think he was from San Jose or Frisco.
Frisco, Michael Hacha, Eisen.
Yeah, I think he was one of Mike Eisen. Yeah, I think he was the one that actually took the shoes. I could be wrong.
No. It was
Well, this is just what people are telling me.
Yeah, I think believe it was Pie Face, and then they were given the robot Salas.
Oh, maybe it was Salas. Anyhow, when he went back there, the guy fronted off the Norteños, you know, in front of all of the people that they promised to protect against the M. And so they went over to get back the stuff, and whoever was calling the shots, robot or whomever, told them, you know, we're not going to give you shit, you know, hit the bricks, pretty much. So anyhow, they backed off, and they regrouped, and they decided that the next day they were really organized about it. The next day they hit as many of the Mexican mafia to try and make them lock down, and they were successful. And the Mexican mafia was embarrassed. They were put to shame because these Norteños had made the M lock down at an entire institution. So it was at that point that the leadership who was down south sent a word out to all the institutions that they were to hit all the norteños as much as they could to make them lock down. And they did, especially at this one institution, which I think was Soledad. But there was one guy that refused to lock down. And he didn't care if he was alone, if he was with 100 guys, he was not going to be made to lock down by the M. And that guy's name was Babo. When they went on the yard, they told him before he went on the yard, the M guys went over and they said, hey, don't go out on the yard because we're going to take you out. And when, well, basically he says, I'm going to be out on the yard. I'm going to pack my shit. You guys pack your shit and we'll go toe to toe, kind of. And so they're all out there. And sure enough, he goes out on the yard. So on one side of the yard, you have all of the M, and then he comes out all alone. Well, on another side of the yard, you have all the BGF. And he's out there on the yard. He's waiting for them, and they start walking towards him, all of them. And then the BGF was so impressed by Babo that they came out, and they kind of formed a skirmish line between them and Babo, between Eme and Babo. And the Eme backed down. And it was at that point that a declaration of war was made on the BGF, and a formal declaration of war was made against the NF as well. Well, remember, now you have the BGF and the ABs have always been at each other's throats, and the ABs weren't that big in numbers. In fact, I think they were the smallest in numbers at the time. But they were, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what people were telling me at the time. And these are old timers, Sahun were there, including the Sosas. And because the BGF was now aligned with the NF, the AB was not very big. So they were kind of like left out on an island. So they made arrangements to form an alliance with the ME. So now you had the ME and BGF, I'm sorry, ME and AB now warring with BGF and the NF. So that's how the blacks started backing up the NF at different institutions, and the AB, the ME at all the other institutions. And that's where the war started out. And man, they were killing each other left and right. So they went back then. And when it hit the streets, they were literally hunting each other. At least they were here in San Diego, but literally, I mean.
Have you ever heard the story about when it was one of the Sosa brothers chased after that one ME member that you mentioned that was out there?
That was Buggy. Buggy. And it was on Market Street. He knew what he looked like. So he saw him on Market Street in downtown San Diego, and Buggy was a little bit crazy himself, and maybe a lot crazy. And he starts chasing him, and he got away. Tawa got away. Tawa at the time was the shot caller and had been for a long time. Was a very well respected guy, and justifiably so. I mean, I think he had stabbed that because that was his weapon of choice was the knife. He had stabbed a bunch of guys, killed a few of them right there in Chicano Park or around Logan Heights. Mm-hmm. But is that more or less what you heard? And I only say this story because the BJ part. I heard about that. See, the beginning, I always was told that it was NFM, Nuestra Familia Mexicana, from around 65 to 67. Sometime it started, right? And around the same guidelines, though, to fight the oppression. They were abusing the raza and so forth. And at that time, they had a little newsletter out there in San Quentin called, I think, Aslan or Azteca. Mm-hmm. And Chalo was running that. And what they did was they started having covert operations where they were schooling each other on what their mission was there. That they were going to fight against inmate oppression and suppression. They started to be a little bit of skirmishes here and there. And from there, the same situation happened to where, like I said, the boots got took. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. But there was two incidents that happened before that. I think there was a what's his name? I want to say Sammy Pena. He was killed out there by some MMA members, and there was also another individual named Philip Neri, who was also hit, but he wasn't killed. Some of these individuals were close with Chalo, and so those were the things that were occurring, and that's where that one individual, Louis Rajo, right, was getting involved in it as well because he was an ex-MMA member,
but walked away around 61. So you had a little bit of influence from those that used to be part of that group in the past and seen the direction it was going, start to change the whole direction. So there's probably a lot of other stuff that's in between. Like they were not being labeled as Norteños yet, because most of those guys were all traditionally from down south. Bruce Weddle Morgan, like you said, Bobo. Charlo was from Bakersfield. Juan Lips, where was he from? He was from Big Bassett. The other one was from Canton. And then Freddie Gonzalez from San Diego. Those were some of the original ones that started it. I think the first one that was from up north would have been Black Bob Vasquez.
Okay.
And I think he got recruited around 67 as well, though.
Yeah, and it's those years that I haven't heard anybody in your blogs talk about it.
Thanks, Henry.
In the 60s. In the 60s, pretty much.
Yeah.
Is that a question?
So, what other incidents did you hear that were going on between the 60s and 70s that you got intel from that we wouldn't know about?
Oh man, I told you this before. Every time, I told you guys, everybody would go down to Tijuana and get their dope, and they get busted either coming across the border or they stop and they get high, they get drunk, they get stopped for the stupid things, and they'd find the dope, they'd go to jail. I'd get the call, I'd go to talk to them, but I'm telling you, man, everybody that I talk to tells them that's not an insult. That's not an insult to anybody. But it's real easy to be. It's real easy to be a really solid soldier when you're locked up or when you're on the streets running with other guys. Especially when they're getting their orders from the Chingon shot callers in the area. Yeah. So they're not going to cooperate. If there's 2 or 3, they're not going to cooperate unless I can get them alone. And if I got them alone, that was it was easy for me to get them to talk because they felt safe. And then if they talked to people, if they went to the jails, they knew about me right away because people would tell them, hey, if Chacon comes to see you, don't talk to him. He works the mobs or whatever. Not to mention that attorneys would come in and check the logs, because they'd get calls from other MA guys. Say, hey, go see. They get direction on what to do. And they go down there and they would go down there, check the log, see who I talked to. But I protected everybody. Once they knew that I protected them, that I did my best to protect them, which I did, even in county jail, if they were there for 6 months, I could go see them, once a week and talk to them for 15 minutes or whatever. And
Roy Boy. Someone know about Roy Boy.
Oh yeah, Roy Boy. I haven't seen or heard of Roy Boy or heard of him for a long time. But what do they want to know about Roy Boy?
Look at that. There's another question right there. You see that? You see it on the screen?
Yes.
Ask him if he ever worked with David Bejarano or whatever on the streets.
Yeah, I don't know. He's a former. I don't think he ever worked gangs. He went through the ranks real fast. Went up, made chief of police.
Hey guys, you guys know we're doing an interview. I'm not going to even address that BS with Triple OG, man. Just so you guys know, because a couple of you guys asked questions, man. Let us run this interview, man. I'm not even going to pay attention to that, man. Bunch of BS.
Well, if you think it needs to be addressed, I'll address it for you if you want me to address it. But I don't. I don't want to get into silliness. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what Bejarano has to do with anything. He never worked the mobs. He never did anything having to do with mobs. He's from Texas. He came out here from Texas. His wife is from Texas. I think his kids were all born in Texas. So I don't know why that question is there.
Yeah. Okay. Block West, if you ever, let me see. Did the OG know Professor from Bakersfield in the 70s? He's mostly from San Diego.
Yeah. I talked to guys from all over the country, from all over the state, all over the country, actually, and there were so many. I just don't remember them, unless I were to see their faces and be like, oh, yeah, I remember that about them, or their women, they wind up in jail.
Who were the main players at that time in San Diego, though, for each group? For like the AB have someone out there, Aryan Brotherhood?
Yeah, but they were mostly East County. They never came into the brown or black neighborhoods. They
Yeah.
were mostly out in East County, and they hung out with the HAs or whatever.
Okay.
But they didn't come out and hang out with the boys. Every once in a while, there'd be one or two guys that would show up on the scene. But I was not impressed by them at all.
So pretty much the NF had a little presence out there. It was pretty much an
Presence?
The
Did you say?
I was always told that one of the NF's strongest chapters was out there in San Diego, believe it or not.
It was, but because when Rose Bird, from Supremes, we used to call her Rose Bird in the Supremes, the Supreme Court Justice, State of California, when she released those hundreds of inmates, Babo, Buggy, Manos, their other brother Alfie, they were all paroled down here because this is where their mother had moved to, and their sister was down here, and they recruited a ton of friggin' people. In fact, they recruited a lot of people from Otay. In fact, one of the guys from Otay was one of his lieutenants, and when he was in the same joint as Babo was, and he was like the secretary, he was like the guy that all the info. That was part of the downfall of the NF too. They wrote everything down, their constitutions, their hit lists. All that micro writing didn't do shit. Because everybody that talked had one almost. Oh, do you want my hit list? Here you go, man. Here's my hit parade. I'm going, oh, all right. So they give me the list. Of course, I'd share it with everybody else.
So I was told, right, about Babo, right? This is what I was informed of, man. And I was told that when they had the vote to vote him in as general, right, that the new Constitution was written in San Quentin, and that Fig, right, is the one that took that Constitution to Tracy, where he was declared the general. And that when Babo looked at the Constitution, he seen a little bit of errors because on it said you had to have a certain amount of kills, you'd automatically be elevated to a general. So that they had to amend it at that time. Did Babo ever tell you what year that was when he became the general?
No, but you know what? I don't ever remember. I don't ever remember a kill quota. What am I saying? Okay, let the old man come out in me here. No, but where were we at? Oh, I don't remember kill quotas. It was a blood in, blood out, like BGF was, like the AB was, like the EMA was. There were. Everybody had certain things that they had in common, like the blood in, blood out. You had to, if you were going to be, if people were going to raise their hands for you, you had to show that you had it in you. But never. Yeah. You got to go out and take 2 MA, 1 AB or whatever. It was never. I never heard anything like that.
Yeah. Let me see. Sonny McCoy from Otay. Otay.
Sonny McCoy, yeah, from Otay, yeah.
Okay.
What about him?
Someone's asking about him.
Oh,
you guys got questions. You got to ask some questions, but anybody that's asking them questions, you guys can be either put on timeout or blocked.
Well, yeah, I knew Sonny McCoy, and I knew of him, and I knew of his activities because he was from Otay, and
okay,
and everybody from Otay they trusted me, 99% of the guys, and they would talk to me again because I would protect them. You want to know one of the ways that I would protect them in county jail?
Oh.
When they'd call me up and say, Chacon, get over here, I got something hot for you. So there was no way that I could go over there, pull them down, and then have them not be hit by whomever, whoever was calling the shots there, and they would be interrogated and such. So what I would do is I would call up the sheriffs over there, and I would say, hey, I'm going to be interviewing over there somebody that is really important, and it's really important that I keep his identity a secret. So they would pull 10, 15 guys down for me, and they'd all be waiting on that interview bench when I got there. So I wouldn't start with the guy that I wanted to talk to. I said, come on. So I pull one over, take him into the interview room, keep him there for 15 minutes, and I wouldn't talk to him. I'd just keep him there for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Or 10 minutes or whatever. And then I'd take him back and they'd get mad. What the fuck was that? And one guy even said, no burrito. But, because of that, remember I told you before about the burrito thing? But anyhow, I'd do that all the way through, and my guy would be somewhere in the middle, and I go, "You got 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what you need to tell me." And exactly 15 minutes, we'd get up just like I did with everybody else. The geyser might hit one guy, maybe two guys, but they're not going to hit 15 guys.
Yeah,
Most
definitely.
And so that's one of the ways that I would use to protect them, and I'm hoping the juras out there that work with people from the streets, I hope they go as far as I did to protect them.
You got a question right there. It says, ask him if he knew Chico Max from Shelltown.
No.
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 You got all kinds of questions. Richie Buchanan.
Oh, yeah, Richie Buchanan, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, what else you guys want to go into? Last time you talked about a crazy case. Now,
well, you asked me about some of the crazy cases.
That was interesting last time. You know what I mean?
The Ayala brothers.
Yeah.
When they killed those three guys, that was I knew it was them within an hour, because I had sources that were in there that left and saw them come in there. So when the call came out, I put it out over the air. It's probably the Ayala brothers, you know. And then later on, it came out during the trial that there was one other guy that, in fact, he wound up testifying in court against them. But they had a hit on him before they even hit the streets. And remember I told you that was the downfall of the organizations. I mean, when a guy is loyal to you, you don't send him out on a mission where he's going to get locked up. He knows he's going to get locked up, for silly things, for disrespect, or for pressuring a guy to bring his old lady in, because everybody did that. They would pressure guys that, guys would talk their wives into bringing in a little taste for them, during that visit. And then the shot callers in the joint would find, that were there, they'd find out about it and say, "Hey, Sasuke, you gotta kick half of that shit down, man. You gotta pay taxes." And my computer's making funny noises. Anyhow,
is it charged?
No, yeah, it's a laptop.
Someone wants to know, did you know Sundown? They've asked about 10 times. I don't think you knew Sundown. Different areas.
No. But
was he ever involved in that indictment that happened in Imperial Valley in San Diego? What year, Brenda? I think he pretty much got out of the gangs, about 1995?
Me? Yeah. That's when I stopped working the gangs, because I worked them from 80 to 90. I mean, full bore, 80 to 90. And after that, I started weaning off. Then I made sergeant, and then I stopped altogether. But even after I was sergeant, the guys would still, they'd find me, because all I had to do is call the police station and say, "Hey, I need to speak to Sergeant Chacon," or to Carlos Chacon, and they'd hook me up. They'd patch me through, and that's when they would tell me, say, I got a homicide for you, or I got this for you, I got a bank robbery for you, but I couldn't help them, and I would tell them. I would tell them outright, "You know what, Sasuke, I don't do that anymore, and I would love to work what you have, but I can't, because I'm assigned to other stuff now. I'm in uniform, I'm back in patrol, but I want to give you the name of somebody that I think will do the best for you." But I also, too, I would tell him, I would preface it with, even though I'm telling you he's a good cop and he does good work, I cannot vouch for anybody, because you never know how they're going to behave. Because even at one time, I tried to give a federal agency a really good guy. I mean, this guy had his shit together. They fought over this guy so hard with each other, amongst each other. Everybody wanted to control him. Yeah. Everybody wanted to be his handler, to the point where he said, "Fuck it." I walked off. This is crazy. And I wouldn't blame him, and I would tell the guy, "Sasuke, I can't vouch for anybody." When people start to work for the cops, they have to make them reliable by doing 2 or 3 things for them. Okay, this guy's good, so then he's good at his word. Well, I think the vatos on the street should do the same thing. Hey, you need to do something for me to show me that you're reliable. You know, I don't know what or how they could do it, but somebody should figure something out because there was a lot of cops out there that I didn't trust only because I didn't like their work ethic, not because they weren't good men or good cops. I didn't like the way they worked.
Hey, I got a few questions I want to back up to that were asked. Let me go back. Okay, I asked last episode if you knew Bat Marquez, he knew of him. Did you know David Barron? Popeye.
David Barron? Oh yeah. I think my partner and I, when I was working street gangs, were the ones to send him away the first time.
Okay.
And then he wanted
to
join.
How was he out there in the streets? Was he pretty active?
He was a kid, but he was active as a kid. Logan, he lived over on Marcy Street, the 2900 Marcy. But he,
you guys catch that? He remembered the address area and everything.
Sometimes that stuff just comes. Like the other day I was thinking about my childhood, and I remember my address. From when I was a kid. But anyhow, he came out and he was a killer. Not bad, but Barron David, and he disappeared into Tijuana. When he was wanted for something, he disappeared in Tijuana, wound up hooking up with the cartels, and he became one of their most prolific assassins.
Oh, wow.
And then he would recruit guys from Logan to come over and do stuff for the cartels. And one of the things that they were doing, they were executing reporters. Especially they had their eye out on this one reporter who was bad mouthing the cartels, and he got shot by his own guy. The last picture I saw of him, and by the way, I think they failed in killing that reporter. But the last time I saw him, he's crumpled up, with his shotgun and his head's hanging down over, leaning up against the wall or a fence. But
so, you know what? Let me ask you something. Okay, at that time when you're working those cases, right? From my understanding, around the 70s to 80s, they weren't called cartels yet. They were called families, right?
Yeah, both. They were called both.
Both? Okay.
Yeah.
So what type of cartel interaction did you guys have back in those days?
I personally had no interaction with the cartels. There were lots of other people that were having interaction with the cartels. It's like, I didn't work dope. I didn't care about dope. I didn't give shit about dope. I worked in Mexico for 2 or 3 years as Mexico liaison for San Diego PD Intelligence. And they were always testing me because you never knew who was dirty, who was clean, who was backing them up. Because it's the same guys that you're working with during the day would be working as bodyguards for them at night, and then you wouldn't know about it. And their compadres there aren't going to burn them to me, even though they like me. And they trusted me. They didn't trust me that much, so I'd read about the next night when another family or cartel would come down and wipe out a carload of their enemies, and then one of them would be killed. I'm going, holy shit, he was working for him, huh? They were. It was a very lively time, but it was nothing like it is now. You know, now before I left, they were kidnapping the shit out of everybody just for the money they had in their ATMs.
Yeah.
And you never heard about kidnappings over there. And all of a sudden people are kidnapped, being found in the trash heaps with their heads cut off, and it was craziness. It got to the point where I didn't even want to go south of the border anymore.
Yeah, most definitely. Let me see what other questions you guys have for him. We had a few in here. Let me see. This dude Lupe knows a whole lot of stuff about it out there, man. Let me see. Let me see what questions we got. CJNG, there was real black. They're real bad. They cut your face off. Yeah, that's true.
They put you in your whole body in a vat of acid. They did all kinds of crazy stuff. Towards the end there, you could see they'd hang 13 bodies in some gymnasium, take pictures of them, and after they decapitated them, they're hanging by their feet. That's some crazy stuff.
So in your debriefing reports, right, that when you went and interviewed these guys, what was the most craziest story that you ever heard? like that? Just when you seen it, you were like, wow, this couldn't be true.
No, you know what? I don't care what I heard. It could all be true.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I
What's
never
stood
heard
out,
anything.
like,
I never heard anything that I said, well, this can't be true. Like that story I told you about that guy with the kidnapping, the 13-year-old boy and all that. You know,
yeah,
that kind of stuff, you when you first hear it, it's like, oh shit, this guy's got to be nuts. And it turns out that he's not, that he's not nuts. But anyhow,
okay.
but when it came to the mobs, I didn't, I never questioned anything. Look, when I could be wrong, and I probably am, but there was these two brothers that their sister was married to one of their guys in San Diego, and everybody was afraid of this brother-in-law that they had. I mean, this guy was vicious. He never wanted to join the MA, but he would do anything for the MA if they asked. You never ever wanted to mess with his wife and his kids. Now he loved them. I mean, to the end. And but he was andaba prendido también, So he would go to Chicano Park and he would rip people off for their. I mean, it was nothing for him to pistol whip a kid or an old lady,
Wow.
or a guy just to take their dope, or their money, And he was vicious. He was vicious.
Let me ask you something. Back then, right? This is what people don't realize. Like nowadays, in the politics in prison, right, or county jail, that won't be accepted. You'll get whacked. You know what I mean? The inmates will deal with you. Back then, how many of these members had funny style charges back then?
What do you mean by funny?
Like they had an R on their jacket? I don't want to use the word, but sexual deviance.
No. Oh. You know what? I never, the old thing, pitcher versus catcher stuff. I hear about it all the time, but that was stuff that was common in the joint.
That's still going on, man.
Yeah, but as far as deviant, that's about as deviant as it got. Amongst the guys, pitcher, catcher. Don't ever call a pitcher a catcher because you have a fight on your hands. You know what I mean?
You're going to have the comments blowing up, man. They're going to be calling each other pitchers and catchers on here. Watch. Barbero's going to tell a man you're a catcher.
What?
Are they talking about Bobble? Bobble from not Bobble from the Bamba. If you guys didn't catch his interview I did about 5 days ago, he's actually indirectly was related to Bobble Sosa and the Sosa brothers.
Yeah, you want me to talk about that or what?
Well, if they have questions about it, they can ask, but I think you touched on it pretty good.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? CJN has a clique called the Cannabis.
I got to tell you, Bobble was a very impressive guy. That guy was a hog. He was so friggin' big. I don't think you could give him steroids and make him bigger. I mean, he was strong as a friggin' ox. But do you hear some admiration to my voice about him? Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And I like Buggy too. And Manos stayed pretty much with himself. He never engaged with me, or I never saw him engage with anybody. He was just a loner. And then they all wind up going back to the joint. Buggy winds up getting paroled back to San Diego. And like I told you before, he told me, Carlos, I love my shit. I love my heroin. I'm not gonna quit. Not for the cops. I won't go to programs. I'm gonna fix till I die. And then, of course, when I'm working investigations, the Southern, I had all of that as a death reports come to me, and I get this report, and it's a picture attached to it, and it's Buggy.
Bobble died of cancer, guys. I think was it 91 or 93?
I think it was right in there. I don't know if
somewhere in those years, but he died of cancer. Natural causes. He was in New Folsom.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. S.A. Lupe from the Heights. Okay, let me see. We had someone in there. They asked if you knew anything about from Oceanside.
No, I just had names. If they were not in the area where I could move around easily, I would. But I had binders with everybody's photograph in San Diego County. If you were in the MA, I had your picture. I had a picture of your car. In fact, I even created a special form that had the name, had the alias underneath it, had his date of birth, I had his CIC number, had everything, federal, state, everything on it. And then right in the one section of it, I had a nice big Polaroid of him and all his cars, all his acquaintances, their addresses and stuff. So if we were ever following somebody, because we had teams following guys, and if we lost them, I'd look at my little book. I call it my field reference book. I look at it. I go,
I got to address something real quick for these people that keep on asking. Okay, so check this out, guys. Someone came across a picture of me back in February, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Alternate, all kinds of shit, right? They've tried to threaten to use it. I've gotten messages trying to threaten to try to expose me and do all this stuff for months. They offer people to pay money. I would never send anything. Why would I ever send something to Triple OG's lady? He's full of fucking shit, man. You know what I'm saying?
You know what? Let me tell you. You know what? People would come to me and say, "Oh, that Vato, he rolled over."
Yeah, man.
I know he's a rat, but you know what? Was that the R word you didn't want to use?
No. It was the RAPE.
Oh, okay. Sorry. But anyhow, they say, I saw the paper. I said, what paper did you see? I saw the sheriff's report. I saw the PD report. I go, you're a damn liar. You didn't see shit. You know, when people say I have paper, well, I got a picture. Well, I got lots of pictures. You know, I mean, if they were to say that they got paper, I want to see the paper. You know, and then that's how the organizations deteriorate from the inside. If you hear barking, I'm sorry, man. That's a little chihuahua that hates birds.
Mad Max actually knew about this, guys, just so you guys know. He's right here in the comments. He knew about this back in February. And there's a little bit more to this. And people know. It's a lot bigger issue, man. People need best to back on up.
Well, just to let you know, when you said that, you know, it kind of irritated me from before, you know. I saw it on one of your things. You know, people they saw it in black and white. They didn't see shit in black and white. You know, who saw it? You know, they can't give you the name of the person. They can't give you nothing except that, hey, I saw it in black and white. You know, or I got it from
the Manchu did too.
A reliable homie, you know, one of those things. I got it from a firme carnal, you know, whatever, you know. I don't think so.
Yeah, most definitely. Anyway, yeah. Anyways, let's get back to the interview, guys. I just wanted to address it because a couple people kept on asking. Broad day, man. Some troll tried to do some stuff today, man. Let me see. Lupe, you know the girl Pecas from Southeast. Pecas. Someone knows Weddle. You know Pecas?
No. Remember, most of the women, if not all of them, that I had recruited to work with me, not for me, to work with me. And I think a lot of the vatos that I recruited, a lot of them are dead now, you know? Yeah. I mean, those are not good lives that they led, you know? And when that shit that goes in the arms or up the nose, it is not nice.
Let me see. We need to. That's right. Hey, I think I got offered a fans only page today, man. Though, you know what I'm saying? Good for me. You know what I'm saying?
Good.
Oh man. Anyways, so what else? What else about the Bobos, man? I'm waiting for people to ask more questions, guys. You guys tap in with the questions.
Well, I probably have questions. You know, I mean, until I talked to David here recently, and he told me that he had talked to somebody else, where Manos killed himself, and I didn't.
Okay, this is what happened with Manos, right? He told his cellie to go to pill call. He shaved all his you know what I mean, his hair, his eyebrows, everything. Shaved his head, and then cut himself everywhere, and then walked out into the tear and just passed out and died.
Oh, see, I got something similar. You know, that he had shaved us whole, but told his cellie to go out. We're good up to that point, but then that he shaved his whole body, shaved his eyebrows, shaved his mustache, and shaved everything in his body. And then he went out to the yard and cut his own throat.
Yeah, the homie said he was there. He said it was in the day room, but it could have been the yard. I don't know. I wasn't present, but it's pretty accurate accounts either way. I know Manos was good up until 1996, believe it or not. He was still active. Yeah, he was still active.
I remember when the Northern Structure came up, I think he was doing time over in Tehachapi.
Yeah, he played a small role in that, believe it or not. I mean, we know who the ones that started the structure and all that. There's a whole lot of different departments and that were involved, like from Ricardo London to Hobo to Corny, Brown Bob and Copas and all that, man, and as well as Manos and other individuals.
Right.
So they all played a pivotal role in that. But they were already trying to work the bonds like years before, and they were trying to have a whole different type of section group, but they shut it down. That's one thing about these organizations. The reason why you don't see any sub factions under like the MA or other groups is because they don't want them to turn into their own entity. Therefore, they're going to have to compete against them. That's why the MA, as soon as you ever heard about anything like SSG or anything starting out there, they shut that shit down real quick. And the NF learned from that as well.
I never understood why they would let them start up anything at all. The only ones that would allow that at the time when I was around was the BGF, and they let the vanguards branch off a little bit, but there was a lot of that there was a lot of politics in there, a lot of revolutionary shit. The attorneys were going to the different prisons and trying to recruit the BGF and the NF.
Because they were working with radical groups on the outside.
Yes.
Like Tribal Thumb and all those other different little groups.
Yeah, and then of course the Texas Syndicate was doing their little piece, in the joint. In fact,
tell us about the TS.
Monday?
Tell us about the TS. The Texas
Syndicate.
Well,
I knew there were some TS, but they were real low profile. Según they were the más chingones in the system,
Yeah.
That if they wanted to hit somebody, freaking dogs. If they wanted to hit somebody, they would send one guy. And if that guy got killed, they would send another guy, but they would only send one guy at a time, face to face. Get your shit, I got my shit, let's go toe to toe. So you start running out of people when you do that, I don't care how tough you want people to think you are, your organization is, and I like their tattoo, but I like the AMA tattoo as well as the NF. Yeah. I had guys did I tell you I had guys that were drawing me all of the symbols, all of the NF stuff, the MS stuff, the stuff, the towers. And they would do it behind. I'm gonna go kill me a dog in a second. Can you pause it just for a second?
Yeah, go ahead. I can chop it up with everybody.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, man, there ain't no emails, nothing like that. There is, it's gonna be altered. I mean, trust me on that, man. So I'm not even tripping off that. I think I should start a fans only page now. But yeah, man, it's a bunch of Farmetto knew about this, Mad Max, all the way back months before, and Toko did too, as well as Rojo and Gunner know a little bit about it too. I'm not going to go into all the details. It's just it was a chaotic mess. You know what I'm saying? If I was to go into details, then we'd be talking about there'd be certain Carnal's names that would be thrown out there. So put it that way. So we're going to stay away from that.
Sorry about that.
Let me see. What's good, MacArthur Productions, man? We got Carlos Chacon in the house, man. I was promised to. Let me see what we got going on over here. I had a couple other questions. I forgot what someone asked me earlier, man. I'm trying to. Let me see. YT, let me see. No, I don't think he knows Sea Dog.
You remember guys that when they came like with the Northern Structure and all that, they came after me after I was. Quite frankly, I didn't want to get involved anymore.
Look at this question. You see that one? And then someone also asked about Tommy Jerkins.
I'm not aware that Bobo ever killed one of his brothers.
There was allegations, we know that, but
well, there was the only brothers I knew about was Alfie, there was Manos, there was Buggy, and then there was Bobo.
Yeah.
Was there another brother I'm not aware of?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. Someone said we got this question. Did you
I know about a lot of guys that were told to kill like their brother or their fathers to kill their sons on the NF side. You know, I mean, that's when they were really, really strict. Don't know Tommy Durkins.
Okay, what about this one right here?
Oh man.
I think from my understanding, there's probably about maybe 12.
I was thinking about 12 to 15 off the top of my head. But a lot of the NF guys, Monday,
I've actually seen some of the old lists back then. You'd be surprised how many members were in certain areas. It's a trip.
Oh yeah, you know, when the bomb was went back and got locked down, when they're back to the joint. When they went back to the joint, a lot of the NF guys were left totally without direction. So I know at least a half a dozen of them that they just kept it low. You know, they stayed in their jefita's house. They didn't go out too much. You know, they just didn't want to have anything to do with the organization anymore, as a lot of guys did. A lot of guys didn't want to have anything to do with the organization. You remember we were talking about guys that were ordered to hit people on the streets?
They're asking if Bat killed Popeye. Or had it done, basically.
I don't know.
He doesn't know?
I don't know.
Let me see. Oh, man. Damn. Got a lot of questions. Let me see. Chief Keith Sosa. Let me see.
A Chiefs promotion sign?
Something like that. Someone asked about Oceanside as well.
There were a few guys out there doing business or trying to do business, just like an Escondido.
Yeah, Amand, he was related to him, to Mano Sosa. You haven't been watching, have you? Some of these guys come in out of nowhere. And
oh, yeah, kind of. I kind of knew him.
Yeah, I kind of knew him. He was related to him.
It was Manos. They called him Manos because he had the biggest friggin'. He was like the Bigfoot of hands. That guy has some huge hands. But he's the kind of. I thought he was a quiet guy. You know,
that's what I heard.
He stuck to himself. He had a deep voice.
Did you ever work alongside David Contreras?
Sure did. Sure did. That's when I say David. That's what we're talking about for.
How do you think we got in contact with each other?
Brenda, did you know David?
David's cool. David's cool. I'm gonna have David on here. David's gonna come on when he comes back. He's on vacation right now, as you know.
Yeah, David is cool. Yeah, and we worked a lot together. David came from the joints as a correctional officer.
He worked at FSU for a while, right?
I'm sorry, SSU?
He was like a gang task force, right, for CDC?
No, I don't think so, because I think he worked the yards or whatever it is, you know, the correctional officers do in there. But he took a real big interest in the mobs. And when he came out, you know, he hooked up with me, or I think he came to one of the prison gang task force. Mm-hmm. I back then would meet once a month, and people from all over the Southwest would come, and everybody would hand out, you know, pictures of all the people that were active in their areas. You know, they would talk about, you know, we have this group.
Oh, look at this. Look at that. From Brenda Love.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it at all. I was David and I even taught at Southwestern College, because that's where the sheriff's academy is. We would teach the sheriffs there at we would teach them inmate staff manipulation, because I would get all of the stories from the guys on how they would make their weapons, how they would make their burners, how they would send their kites, you know, from one floor to the other. I mean, they told me everything, you know, what they would do, you know, and the conversations that they would have with the correctional staff to play them out.
That's a good question right there.
Some of them had such good attorneys they had affairs with them.
I've heard of the staff, manipulation you're talking about. I've heard of people actually getting with correctional officers later on when they get out.
Oh yeah, and their attorneys. Yeah.
Oh
yeah. I lost my train of thought. I started thinking about something else.
Okay, guys, we're only gonna have a few minutes, guys. About 5 more minutes, and we're gonna try to wrap this up. So, any questions you got, tap in with them. Peace. San Ojeda, Big Donald Garcia. I think Big D. I think he fell off really around that time as far as turned Christian before he became a law enforcement officer. I think.
Yeah, a lot of guys did. And they would try to be helpful. They would say, so this is not a good place for you to be right now or whatever,
No, he didn't know old man Rafa, I don't think, because let me see.
Oh, old man Rafa? There was young Rafa, or yeah, there was from San Diego?
From Fresno.
Oh no, from Fresno, no. There was I started to tell you about inmate stuff.
Very much. What happened in Escondido? See that question?
Just curious. You'd have to be more specific.
You gotta be more specific, guys. The CO in Fresno, yeah, that was going on. Young man Rafa. What's up, Amanda? Raza 14. Vidal Salcido from Logan.
What was it called?
I have no idea.
I can't remember.
Let me see. Thank West Coast NorCal. Appreciate you, man.
Anytime.
Is there anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
Yeah, it's I understand that you guys feel you got to do what you got to do, but you got to be smart. You got kids, you got wives. Show me a family that you don't treat well, and I'll show you a family that you're going to lose. A lot of the times, all the guys involved with the gangs wind up just going back to mom and dad, and then that's all they got. Be good to your families, be good to your children. Don't make them gangsters. Tell them not to get any tattoos. You want them to look clean all the time. If they want to dress up like gangsters, fine, but don't get any tattoos. Don't write shit down. Hang out with whomever they want to, but have them have a straight head. But that'll be up to you. You need to let them know that there's more to life out there than dealing on the street corner or getting guys to deal for you on the street corners. Make them judges. Make them doctors. Make them teachers. Make them mechanics. Make them whatever it takes to make a clean living. Because it's a real bitch. And a lot of know that, when you guys get what you have, whether it's property, houses, or whatever, it's a bitch when the government comes in and takes it because of ill-gotten gains. Have them live a different life. Have them stop that chain of events that follows them all around. Generation after generation. Because I know some of you will say, "Sabes que my jefito was from Logan, or he was from Salinas, or from Fresno, or whatever, or Parlier, or whatever." And and his jefito was, and my jefito was, and I am. It's got to stop somewhere. Why shouldn't they be driving around in a Bentley or a Rolls Royce, or a real nice Lexus? Why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they have a good job that gives them the money they can take your jefito and your jefita out to dinner, at a nice restaurant, in downtown San Diego? Why should that be for everybody else?
Yeah.
And it used to break my heart when I was working patrol and working Logan Heights. I go down this street and there were there were several houses. I remember there's one house, the chain link fences, which were illegal because you couldn't have anything higher than a 4-foot fence in the front. These things would be 10, 15 feet high. And on the top, there would be, that Constantine barbed wire thing, up there. And behind all that, I see a little boy playing in the dirt with a little car. And I'm thinking, gee, gal, man, that's fucked up. Why can't that little kid, and he will never, if he were to stay in that environment, he would never see anything better than that. And I wish that you guys could bring that to the table for him.
Okay, well, I want to thank our guest this time, Carlos Chacon, and I want one real quick address. So I'm going to put a post up. We have a 50-50 cash raffle. We're going to let it go throughout the week. We're already at about 100 and something. So tap into that. And maybe the runner-up will get a picture of me as well. With that said, you guys have a good one, man. Hey, thanks, Carlos, for tapping in.
Thank you, man.